I want to get into a little bit about going gluten-free. Now, gluten can be a really difficult thing to give up. And, you know, I know there's so many books out now, like Wheat Belly, Grain Brain, a lot of food, a lot of videos, a lot of books about going gluten-free. And I still meet a lot of people that just think it's hype. They think, I don't really need to go gluten-free. But what I can tell you is if you live in North America, and probably in Australia too, any of these countries that grow a lot of grains in bulk, you're not just getting gluten, but you're getting the mold and the mycotoxins that grow on these grains. And the way that that works, and this actually also includes corn, so I know that's a bummer for people that have already gone gluten-free and corn tortillas are like your best friend. You know, maybe just think about moderating that versus just giving it up altogether. I know for me, I just this year gave up grains altogether. It took me a long time to give up my little thing I like to do of eating blue corn tortilla chips every once in a while. But I did give that up, and I feel like it's much better for me. And the reason why is that, like I said, mycotoxins, and I did do a blog on this recently, mycotoxins grow on wheat, rye, barley, these are all glutinous stored grains, as well as corn. Now what I mean when I say stored grains are not triticale, they're not spelt, they're not these rare grains like quinoa and teff and amaranth. Those grains are not stored because they're not popular enough. Now that might start to happen with quinoa, so we need to keep an eye on it. But right now, the big stored grains are the things that most Americans eat, like wheat flour, corn flour, or corn. And you know, just a lot of these like rye, glutinous grains. Now, what happens in middle of America, like I'm from Nebraska, actually, did you know that? 6 months old, my parents moved me out, I'm so glad. But if you're from Nebraska, I still love you. But anyway, you know, these places that grow corn in bulk and wheat in bulk, they have to store them in these huge silos. And what happens is once the silos are full, they just have to store them there. They don't really have a place to put them until they're ready to bag them and ship them off to whoever ordered them. So those silos, you know, it doesn't always stay dry in Nebraska. It rains, things happen. Or, you know, other states that are growing these grains. So when it rains, it starts to mold. And when it rains, actually, it doesn't start to mold. It gets wet. The silos get wet. So these grains will be moist. And what does mold feed on? It feeds on moisture. So the mold starts to grow. And part of that, one of the fungus that grows is called mycotoxins. And mycotoxins is really disruptive to the immune system. For me, what happens when I eat a mycotoxin, like cashews, which is also in the article, and I'm sorry to say for you people out there that love cashews, cashews also has a lot of mycotoxins. And so for me, when I eat corn, I don't really eat gluten, so that I haven't had that happen in a long time. But when I did used to eat it, first thing, itchy eyes. Ooh, my eyes itch right away. That's a sign of mold in your food. Do your ears like, ooh, something itchy in your ear? How about does your nose run? Or not even run, but it just feels like you're stuffed up, like you can't breathe, or you're mucousy. And then the other thing for me is my throat. And this is mostly with cashews, but with any moldy grain, my throat starts to get scratchy right away. My lymph nodes inflame. And that's just my weak point because I had my tonsils out as a kid and I was allergic to grains and my parents didn't know it. So I kept eating wheat my whole childhood and like my tonsils got so swollen I had to get them taken out. Probably from wheat and dairy. But I gave those up and I feel so much better and so much healthier, and I can't even tell you how great it is to feel good every day, to wake up just feeling clear. The only time I don't wake up feeling good is if I had something that had mycotoxins in it. So that's why I'm sharing it with you today, because if you haven't given up gluten yet, or maybe you're not even thinking about giving up gluten, you know, I just want to say there's a few things that you could do to get started. And the first one would be, instead of just giving up all gluten altogether, how about giving up white flour? Like most of you probably have, but breads, I know it's so tempting to get pastries, like you'll go to a coffee shop and they have these yummy looking scones, or, you know, every once in a while you're like, oh, it's not a big deal to eat white bread. But I got to tell you that one thing is when they grind the grains, they're not storing them in the freezer, so those things are going, the oils that are in the grains are going rancid, so you're getting that on top of the mold that's already in it. And then have they sprayed it with anti-mold things? Probably. So we're getting a lot of chemicals in these flours that nobody's reporting because they don't have to report this on the package. So I'm just here to educate you guys today on just really watching out for all the grains that are out there. The next thing to give up, and actually I think I would do this before white flour, did you know that whole wheat bread it raises your blood sugar faster than white bread? And I just think that's amazing. And there's been study after study that has shown this. So people that have diabetes or pre-diabetes, or you're just watching your blood sugar, whole wheat flour is going to actually make your blood sugar go up quicker than white flour. So I just think the more that you can just take a look at this, the better. The next thing you give up after you give up flours is just starting taking a look. Like people always ask me, is Ezekiel bread okay? It's sprouted grains. Well, I would say that's way better. Honestly, here's the truth. I think unless you have celiacs or you have a strong gluten intolerance, giving up sprouted grains would come after giving up rice flour, corn flour, potato starch, and tapioca starch. And the reason for that is a lot of those flours are also, did you know that rice flour also contains a gluten in it, even though it's not a wheat gluten? So a lot of people that have celiacs or are gluten intolerant also are affected by brown rice flour or white rice flour. So I'm just here to educate you. I don't want to burst your bubble and say, oh my God, what's there left to eat? But since giving up all these things, I can tell you I feel a lot healthier, a lot clearer headed, and just better even keel moods. So the grains like Ezekiel bread would actually come after all those other things if you want to just kind of give things up systematically. But just start with something. Start with giving up, even if you just want to do our gluten-free program, our 7-day gluten-free program for a week. We do actually have it now available for the month of March for free, so you guys can try that out. I'll give you the link at the end. But the other things you kind of need to know is that grains are really acidic, so especially glutinous grains. So I've talked before about alkaline and acid, and raw foods promote an alkaline body, things like leafy greens, sprouts, fruits, vegetables, any kind of fruits and vegetables, most of them are alkaline. Grains are not so alkaline, but grains that are more alkalizing, things like quinoa, buckwheat, teff, amaranth, and I know I'm missing one. Oh, and millet. So those are all way better choices than wheat products or glutinous products, because gluten is very acid forming, which causes disease. So the first thing that shows up for us when we start to get acidic is a cold, a runny nose. Even for me, if I eat too many nuts, which are more neutral as far as alkalinity, but my body's more alkaline than nuts, so if I eat too many nuts, I'll start to get a runny nose. But when we get acid, we're going to get more sick more easily. So in the flu season, which is winter right now, I don't even remember the last time I got a cold, which is awesome, but I keep my body really alkaline with green juices and just things like that to combat it. So what do we do? So what do we do if we eat grains and it's acidic and we kind of feel it? We're like, oh no, I think I'm getting a sore throat. What do I do? You guys know my answer, right? What do we do when we eat something acidic, or we eat something that we shouldn't have ate, or we know is not going to make us feel good? First thing to do, the easiest thing to do, and I was supposed to mention this 2 weeks ago, but I forgot, so I apologize. I'm going to do it now. The first thing you can do is take activated charcoal. Now, this isn't something you want to take every day, but when you eat gluten, or you accidentally eat gluten, or you eat a food that's really acidic, charcoal is going to help. It's not going to alkalize you, but it's going to help suck out those toxins. So it's good to take that at night, maybe with some smooth move tea or something that's going to keep your bowels moving, or extra magnesium. What that's going to do, and I always take it with extra magnesium for me, because if I take too much charcoal, I get foot cramps, and that means my magnesium's low. So I always take like 3 or 4 capsules of activated charcoal if I feel like I got exposed to something. Even after I've gone on an airplane, or I drank kombucha, which doesn't really work as well for my body, especially if it's has a high glycemic index. Sometimes they're sweeter than others. I'll take some charcoal. So that's one trick. And then the other is digestive enzymes. We have a couple really great digestive enzymes on the website. We have one for digestion, which is called, I'm going to tell you what it's called, because I always remember the name of this. You've got to program your mind to always remember, not always forget, right? Power Plus enzymes. So these are super potent. So if you eat gluten, these have a lot of amylase and things for digesting carbohydrates. So you want to take digestive enzymes anytime you're eating cooked food that you feel it doesn't serve you. Like if you're eating broccoli, maybe it's a good idea if you think you're going to get gas from it, because it'll help break down those carbs a little quicker. But for sure, if you eat grains, especially gluten, make sure you take digestive enzymes. The other enzyme that I love is a systemic enzyme that we also carry, and that one's going to actually break down old blood sludge, clean out the fibrin. It's got serrapeptase, so it cleans out fibrin in your body, so it goes even deeper. So what I'll do if I had a night where I went out to dinner and I don't know, did they give me canola oil like in that salad dressing, or did I accidentally get gluten? I'll take the systemic enzymes, like 10 of them in the morning, and what it does on an empty stomach is it just goes out and cleans out anything that's in there. So those are some really great tricks. Digestive enzymes with the food, and then the next day, and that night, take charcoal, and then the next day, take some systemic enzymes just to clean out. A couple other tricks is a hot sauna. Sauna is amazing for us. I actually have a sauna. Maybe I'll do one of the Facebook Lives in the sauna one of these days. It's an infrared sauna. What it does is it's much better than a regular sauna that you would get like at the gym, because the infrared penetrates your cells and it actually helps to heat you up from the inside. And what heat does is it actually helps to burn off any fungus, yeast, mold, things like that in your body. It's very drying, so you want to make sure you hydrate afterwards, but drying can sometimes be good. Some of you guys have seen me talk about dry fasting, and what that does is the drying actually helps to kill off, because our cells will compete with the pathogens, which are yeast, mold, and fungus, like candida, fungus on your toes. Does anybody out there have like a little bit of mold on their toes, or you get yeast infections, or itchy hands sometimes? So that's yeast, mold, and fungus. So drying your body out, which I can talk about another time, is really good. So going in a sauna and just even for that half an hour, let your body get dry and then hydrate after. So the good cells are smarter than the pathogens, so they're both competing for the water in your body, and the good cells are going to win. So that's why sometimes I'm into dry fasting or doing these dry saunas, okay? So these are all things that are going to help you get through the rest of this winter. We've only got 18 more days to go, because it ends on the 21st, right? That's the equinox. Anyway, I know that winter doesn't actually end on the end. Our spring is already happening. We're getting flowers here. But we know that that's kind of the winter season and when most people get cold. So just stick it out. Get through the next 21 days. Drink your green juice would be the next thing to do to get more alkaline. I like to drink my celery, cucumber, lemon, and dandelion juice or kale juice lately. I'm really into getting these sulforaphanes up more, which is all the cruciferous. Like, you know what? I feel like kale has gotten bullied a little bit. We've been doing kale, like I've been doing kale for 20 years, raw kale in the form of green juice, kale salads, kale chips, and then a couple people have come along with their little biohacking and saying, you can't eat kale because it's got, you know, acidic things in it, it's going to mess with your body, you got to steam it. Well, I just found out from Rhonda Patrick, who knows a lot more than these biohackers, she's the PhD scientist, that raw kale actually contains this sulforaphane, which we need, and if you end up cooking it, you have to actually add that mustard back on to get the good resveratrol effects of boosting your mitochondria. So poo on cooking kale. You can eat it raw, you can put it in your green juice, you can make a kale salad and get your enzymes going. You got to get all that enzyme and get your life force back, get your energy back. If you're feeling low energy, are you eating enough raw foods? Get them in your body. And even if it's cold out, you can, like I said earlier in this talk, you can put half raw and half cooked kale. Like cook your kale up, then make a raw sauce with kale over the top. Like blend kale with tahini, garlic, ginger, lemon, and some salt. That's a great recipe. And pour it over the top of your steamed kale. I know that sounds weird, but we're faking out the body. We're tricking it so that we can still enjoy cooked foods but get the benefits of the raw. The other thing about conventional grains I'm going to go back to, because that's the fifth way to become superhuman, is to avoid grains, especially glutinous grains, and also corn. I feel like corn should just be glommed onto the gluten category, even though it doesn't have gluten, because of the mold in it. If you're curious, check out my blog at elenalove.com. The last blog I did is on mycotoxins in corn, cashews, and gluten. They also spray Roundup if you're eating non-organic grains, and let's face it, most of the time people are splurging is not when they bring home an organic cookie to eat or make their own cookies, because if you did that, you'd be making gluten-free ones. It's usually when you're in a moment of weakness and you're out and that pastry looks good or that scone looks good, or you're like, I'm going to have pancakes today. Those are conventional grains, so they've been sprayed with Roundup, they've got chemicals on them, and to just punch you in the face after that, they're full of gluten and mold and mycotoxins. So I'm really making grains the bad guys, but I think that we really need to know how our gut is affected by this. And for me, when my gut gets affected, my brain gets affected. The first thing that happens to me if I have gluten, like even accidentally or somehow I ate something that just is my gut doesn't hurt. Like I don't feel it in my gut. But what will happen is I'll be really hot. Like my body will start to heat up, trying to burn off that stuff. But then it's always the next morning if I don't take charcoal or I don't do these enzymes like I told you about, I just feel moody. I'm like, I don't feel like doing anything. I don't want to see anybody. Leave me alone. Grumpy and grumpy, grumble, grumble. And mood is affected by the gut. So you can be sure if you're moody, whether it's PMS or you're just irritable, that you put something in your gut that is not working for you. It's feeding the bad guys. So if you feel bad, you fed the bad guys. So let's just start paying more attention to that. Getting the probiotics in is great, but instead of spending $40 on a bottle of probiotics, just stop feeding the bad guys and start feeding the good guys with things like kefir and sauerkraut and our coconut yogurt. Also prebiotics, like things like jicama, which I have one in my fridge right now, asparagus. There's a lot of vegetables out there that feed the good guys, so you want to focus on that as well. So these are some ways that you can like avoid spending tons of money on probiotics and just start making your own. And the cheapest way to do it is make coconut water kefir. Just put probiotics right into your coconut water and let it culture overnight. So that's just some little tricks and tips and things for you today on why I don't like gluten, why gluten is the bad guy, and why when you eat the good guys, you're going to feel superhuman. You're going to feel amazing. People always say to me, you're doing so much. Oh my God, like you should see Caitlin and I. I mean, she's completely like, her diet is so clean. It's amazing because she has celiac and autoimmune. So she can't even mess around with like any kind of, like I could get away with eating a brown rice cracker or something, but she can't because her body just really reacts. So we have tons of energy is what I want to say because we're eating clean food. And so we've got all these things going, all these courses. We just introduced a new gluten-free 7-day course. But people always ask me, like, you're doing so much, you have so much energy. And I really do. Like, this is real. Like, if you ask Caitlin, like, I'm always bouncing around the house, and I feel so good because I'm feeding my gut really healthy foods. And, you know, it's not about really how much you eat or how little you eat. Like, because I know a lot of people that are super thin and working out, but they still don't feel good. It's like you can eat gluten and still like work out and, you know, avoid other things, but you still might be feeling really bad. So pay attention to your mood. Your mood is going to tell you everything about whether what you ate the night before is working for you or not. What we encourage people to do in our 30-day love camp, which is coming up in April, and in our 7-day gluten-free course is to journal. So the thing that saved me was journaling. When I first went raw 20 years ago, I started journaling everything I ate. And one thing I noticed is after about 3 months of eating raw foods, that the oat flour wasn't working for me anymore. Like not oat flour, but oat groats, because I was making raw oatmeal. And one day I was like, I journaled, I'm like, I'm so sleepy. And then I looked at what I ate, and it was the raw oatmeal. So I stopped doing that. And so the journal's gonna help you to see what worked and what didn't, because we don't always make the correlation. And I hate to do this, but every time I'm not feeling good, usually the first thing I ask is, what did I eat? And there's usually, sometimes it's not, it's just emotional, but most of the time for me, it's usually something I ate the night before or even 2 days before. So just keep a food log, and it's going to really help you. So we talk about that a lot in our courses. So love you guys. Thanks for joining, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.